Why don't you try something different for a change? The Majority Report with Sam Cedar is a 5-time award-winning daily left-wing political talk show. We go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Central Time on our YouTube channel. You can find it by searching for The Majority Report. We talk about the news, we take libertarian callers, we have debates, we interview guests on topics ranging from the post-Civil War Reconstruction era, child poverty, capitalism, the intellectual dark web, and more. And that's all just within the last month. If you want to hear what smart, progressive political talk that is occasionally amusing sounds like, then you need to tune in. And you're always welcome to call in if you want to hear the correct opinion on any given topic. I will give it to you. Tune into The Majority Report at 11 a.m. Central Time on YouTube or later wherever you get your podcasts.
WVNN. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The time has come for America to hear the truth.
We are going to stand with them, and not only are we going to fight for their rights, but we're going to stand up for our rights here in our state, in our homes, and in our community.
One day longer, one day stronger. One day longer, one day stronger.
Because the future of labor's rights in the United States of America is not going to be decided in the courts. It's not going to be decided in Congress. It's not going to be decided on talk radio, and it sure is not going to be decided on Fox News.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Good morning, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, Adam Keller. It is Saturday, June 5th, 2021, and we are broadcasting live online and on the radio on WVNN in the Huntsville, Decatur, Athens listening area from Athens, Alabama. A recording of this program will play tomorrow, Sunday, June 6th, 2021, on the Great WGOL in Russellville, Alabama, and sometime next week on WHIV in New Orleans, Louisiana. Today, we are talking to Cooper Karaway, South Dakota AFL-CIO president, about poultry workers' struggles in his state, talking to some miners' wives about Scab and boss violence on the picket line down in Brookwood, Alabama, how it is good for working people in this state that our so-called anti-riot bill did not pass in Alabama. All this and more on today's Valley Labor Report. So remember, folks, the North Alabama DSA has a necessities drive this Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. at the IBEW Local 558 Union Hall on Clinton Avenue, right across from Yellowhammer and Campus 805. So bring by your non-perishable food items, your PPE, your clothes, blankets, all that good stuff, and all of your donations will be forwarded to the Manor House. You can follow at DSA North Alabama on Twitter for more information. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. And if you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there. And I promise this weekend I'm going to clip segments, and you're going to start seeing them on the YouTube channel again next week. We have just been so caught up and so busy with other stuff. I haven't been able to clip the past, almost a month of shows I haven't clipped yet. So got to get that done. But, this is a two-man show, and you don't have to pay for it. We appreciate it if you do, but you don't have to pay for it. So, in some ways you get what you pay for. But we also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. apps. We're behind on that as well. Going to be working on that. We're going to try to get caught up this weekend. But to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, you can go to the Valley Labor Report.transistor.fm/subscribe. We've got a website where you can buy our hats and our stickers, thevalleylaborreport.org. We've still got probably about 30 hats or so left. Not, we're getting down a little bit on the supply. We bought 100 and we've sold a good bit of them. And I've got probably about 10 hat orders that I need to mail out this week. Again, we're gonna have a Valley Labor Report work weekend this weekend. I think that's what I'm gonna be doing. If you don't want a hat though, but you still want to support us, the best way to do that is throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/the Valley Labor Report. So on the line, we have Cooper Karaway. He is the president of the South Dakota AFL-CIO, and he is on the line now to talk to us about poultry workers fighting the boss in his state. Cooper, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. I'm very glad to have you. So fill us in on the situation. There's some poultry plant workers in your state that there was a big just talk to us about what they've been dealing with. What have they been dealing with the last year?
All right. So this is actually a pork processing plant in Sioux Falls under Smithfield Foods. So over the last year, the Smithfield plant in Sioux Falls for a long time when the pandemic started was actually the number one hotspot for the coronavirus in the country. And if you looked at the list of the hotspots, every other facility on the list were prisons, and you had like one aircraft carrier out in the middle of the ocean. But everything else was prison. But number one on the list was the Smithfield plant in Sioux Falls. It was the only workplace on the list. All right. And this is because management really did not take the coronavirus seriously. They were taking their cues from Donald Trump. They were taking their cues from Governor Kristi Noem, and they were not taking the virus seriously. Months before the pandemic even hit Sioux Falls, the workforce, the workers there at the plant sounded the alarm. They said that they said to management that you need to take the coronavirus seriously because the workforce is largely immigrants and refugees. So they were in a unique position. They were getting information from their home countries about how the coronavirus is affecting their home countries, and they were raising the alarm and saying, okay, we need to be proactive, we need to put in these safety measures, and the bosses just closed the door in their face. Fast forward to today, over 1,200 of the workers in that one plant tested positive for the coronavirus, and 4 of them died just from that. And so entering into contract negotiations, this is national news. All right? This is number one hotspot in the country. This is national news, how poorly management handled this issue. So heading into contract negotiations this year, everyone expected that this would be a smooth negotiation, that these workers had been called by their bosses essential workers and heroes and all these other things. And so they came in asking for modest pay increases and whatnot. And management came back with proposals that not only didn't provide the modest pay increases, but actually is asking for the workers to give up several of their breaks and several of the other things that they already have. And the workers, resoundingly voted down management's proposal this week by 99%.
That's insane. So what are these? What does the pay scale look like for these for these workers?
Yeah, so base pay at the plant is $17, okay. And for the work, that's underpaid. $17 is barely a living wage in South Dakota for a single person. But a lot of these workers have families, and so you definitely need base pay to be higher. Just right across the border in Minnesota, base pay is $19 at the JBS plant, and so the workers were asking, okay, it's 20-30 minute drive, so it makes sense for base pay here to be $19. And then we can adjust the pay scale. So, you do have folks who've been there, 20 years, whatnot, making $30 an hour or something like that. But it makes sense to adjust the base pay. And the company is not interested in those kind of things.
And you said that the company's proposal was there weren't any improvements. It was all cuts, like across the board, to their breaks, to their pay, everything.
Yeah, so they're asking for concessions, and they're asking to eliminate one of the 15-minute breaks. The workers are guaranteed 2 15-minute breaks in addition to their lunch, and management wants to cut that 15-minute break. If you ask management, they would probably tell you that they want to increase the vacation time, because they did say they're going to give a couple extra vacation days. But in return, what they're asking for is the elimination of unpaid leave. So like I said, a lot of these workers are refugees, and so a lot of times they have to use their unpaid leave because they need to go back to Africa, they need to go back to Asia and spend time with their families or see their families if there's a health issue or something like that. And they use their unpaid leave when they do that because they don't know when they'll be able to get back. But the company is not paying them, and so this is a system that's worked out well up to this point. And so the company would say, well, we're asking for, we're offering a couple more vacation days, but in exchange for that, we're asking for these workers not to be able to go back to their home countries, and I see that as a concession.
Absolutely. That's definitely a concession. These workers to go back and visit their families in their home countries. I mean, they're not even asking for pay. It's just let me come back to my job when I'm able to get back. That doesn't sound like that's not a big ask, it seems to me. And that's just the inhumanity of these bosses has really been exposed in the pandemic, it seems to me, and through a lot of these contract negotiations that are being more publicized as worker struggles are getting more coverage, I think, in the media. But I mean, we can look, and we're going to be talking to Hayden Wright, one of the miners' wives, here in just a second about some of the violence that they've been seeing on the picket lines from scabs and bosses. But from the negotiations side down there, it's been insane. The chief negotiator for the company has said that she reckons the miners down there get paid too much, and they were asking for concessions as well. Like after they went on strike, they gave them some meager, or they offered some meager improvements, but it wouldn't have even been. It was a 5-year contract, and it wouldn't have even been enough to keep up with inflation over the 5 years. Much less get them back what they lost in 2016. And as we're coming out of this pandemic, as we are coming out of this time where the miners and those pork processing plant employees sacrificed so much for this country. You said that the company was using this language of essential workers and heroes and things like that. And of course, companies across the board have done that. And now, it's insane that they have the audacity after a year like this and the sacrifices that workers have made to ask for more instead of even offering meager gains. They're asking for more sacrifices from the workers.
Yeah, you're right. And, it just shows that bosses all over the country, have the same line of thought. And that is, in Alabama, the coal bosses, they say that they think that the workers are just part of the mine. And up here, they say that the workers, they're just part of the plant. They're just an extension of the machinery of the plant. They're not in any way human, and they don't believe they deserve the rights that men and women and humans deserve. And that's just the way they think, and that's being exposed throughout the pandemic. That the workers are just extensions of the machinery that they work on.
Hey, Cooper, this is Adam. I really like what you just said there. I'm reminded of a phrase that we hear, human capital. And there's lots of that kind of talk that really dehumanizes people. And like you said, just conflates these workers as if they are just another machine in the plant. But something you mentioned in the intro about there were 4 people who died in this plant, over 1,200 cases of COVID in the plant. And management is actually seeking takebacks in this contract. Just, I know you can't share everything, of course, but to the extent that you can, what is management's rationale for actually trying to claw back important benefits in this contract after such a year?
I think management probably is thinking that they're the victim. They're thinking that it's not the workers that are the victim because the workers are just part of the plant. So how can the plant be the victim? Management's thinking they're the victim. They're the ones who had to shut the plant down several times. They're the ones that had to have the CDC come in and have an investigation, even though management didn't even cooperate with the investigation in a good faith way. They're the ones who had to lose profit and things like that. So management probably came to the table feeling like they're the victim.
Yep, that's right, Cooper. We're going to pick that up on the other side. Stay tuned.
With David Story and Jacob Morrison.
All workers deserve fair wages, affordable health care, and a retirement plan that enables them to retire with dignity. All workers deserve to have a say about the terms and conditions of their employment, not just the bosses. With the machinist unions over 600,000 members having our back, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama has been serving workers' interests for over 20 years. Our members have the best health insurance in the area with zero deductible plans. We set the bar for pay in the area with over $40 an hour rates, consistently averaging the highest non-college degree jobs in North Alabama with some of the best retirement plans in the industry. We can do the same for you. Together, we remain united, raising our voices to ensure justice on the job and service in the community. The Machinist Union is a true Southern union founded in Atlanta in 1888. We have been serving members' needs for 132 years. The longevity of our union proves our dedication and loyalty to the working class. The Machinist Union isn't just for machinists. We represent workers in government, healthcare, auto workers, aerospace workers, transportation workers, the defense industry, and woodworking. Our members even build the iconic Harley-Davidson motorcycles. If you're ready to get serious about better benefits and wages, if you want to have a voice in your workplace with over 600,000 members to back you up, call or email us today at 256-286-3704 or organize at iamaw44.org.
Here in Huntsville, federal employees are an invaluable part of the nation's defense, offering unmatched expertise in engineering and technology and as stewards of taxpayer dollars. What we ask for in return is to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, is a union of working people looking out for each other, making sure that we're treated right. To inquire about joining or to learn more, call 256-876-4880.
WVNN.
Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, Adam Keller. We are talking to Cooper Karaway. He is the president of the South Dakota AFL-CIO about pork processing plant employees, some of their struggles that they've been going through over the pandemic, and the question that we accidentally threw him up into the break against, he was answering was, the boss was asking for concessions in this contract instead of even meager gains for the workers after a year of sacrifice for their company and for their country. They asked for concessions. They asked for more from the workers, more sacrifices from the workers. What was, and you were telling us what their rationale was, and it was that they were the victim. Was there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
No, that's right, and it falls into that line of thought that the workers are just part of the plant, part of the machinery, and so they don't have feelings. So management, from their perspective, sees themselves as the victim because they lost profits. They had to pretend to participate in a CDC investigation. They had to change up the way they did things. They lost, things in their budget that they had projected years before, and things like that. The workers was part of the plant, so they're not the victims. Management came to the negotiation table with a victim mentality.
Right. And that's just, it's insane. So the workers voted it down. What was the vote against the contract that was offered?
99% to 1%.
99% of the workers voted no on the proposed contract. So what is the and so there's an implicit strike threat there. I mean, how much, like Adam said, I don't know how much that y'all are going to be able to divulge at this point, but what does the plan look like for these workers going forward to be able to win, dignity and respect and fair wages and working conditions at this job?
Yeah, so now I imagine they're going to be heading back to the table next week. And they'll probably be taking a strike authorization vote around that time as well.
Okay, and this is something that I'm interested in as somebody who is active in in our federation, the state federation, and our local labor council. What you're here. And you talk to some of the local news about this struggle for one of the local unions in your federation. What else is the South Dakota Labor Federation, the Sioux Falls Labor Council like? How are unions in the area, or is there a way at this point that they're able to come together and support these meat processing workers during these negotiations?
Yeah, so it's the Federation's role to, gather all the unions, all the worker organizations, and to your best ability, the working class as a whole, and build solidarity for workers when they're going through something like this. And so, that's what I'm out here doing. That's what I'm doing with you. That's what I'm doing with, other media I've been talking to. I got some other shows lined up in the next couple of days. And so I'm out here trying to build solidarity amongst the working class as a whole to support these workers. And obviously, as soon as there's a picket line, I'll be working to make sure that all the unions in the state or in the area that can are sending folks down, sending supplies, and I'll be right there on the picket line the entire time.
Yeah, I want to thank you for sharing this struggle with us here in Alabama.
Turn your mic up, Adam. I can't hardly hear you.
Can you hear me, Cooper?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing this struggle with us over here in Alabama. I think the pandemic, as Jacob mentioned, it really exposed a lot. And one of the things that really, hit home for me was the amount of work that comes into actually maintaining our food supply. And, these workers are some of the most vulnerable to really dangerous working conditions. And I think that, this pandemic, if there's anything good that can come out of it, I hope it's that more folks are aware of how our struggles are all connected. And what happens with these pork processing workers impacts our food chain. It impacts the wages in your region. And I think that was a great point that just 30 minutes away, you have folks doing basically the same work for $2 an hour more. So, I appreciate all that you're doing. And we want to send our love and solidarity out to those workers in South Dakota because we know their struggle is very important and it's connected to ours as well.
Yeah, it is. And likewise, just like I said earlier, or a couple of weeks ago, that, the struggles up here, the folks that work in these plants, the folks who work around South Dakota, we understand that our lot is tied in, our prosperity is tied in with making sure that the miners in Alabama are victorious, and we believe that with all of our hearts, and we understand that, and we know you guys feel the same way. And if the working class can maintain that those ties and that bond across the country and across the world, then all of us will be victorious one day.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. And that was one of the themes of that long live stream that we had whenever we would talk to the miners is how interconnected that community is, and then broadly across the country. You know, I mean, every time that workers lose, that gives another company one more example where they can point to their worker, where their workers are fighting for good wages and working conditions. They can point to this loss over here, even if it's halfway across the country, and say, look, do you think you're better than these workers? Look what they accepted. And on the contrary, every time that workers win, even if it's across the country, workers can point to it and say, look, boss man, these workers are being paid a fair wage. Their company isn't going bankrupt. Their employer still makes a good bit of money. Why can't we have what they have? We know that it can be done, so we can do it. Every win for workers anywhere is a win for workers everywhere, and in the same way that a loss for workers anywhere is a loss for workers everywhere. I mean, because exactly like you said, brother, all of our struggles are interconnected in so many ways. In the interpersonal way, as in we're all people, children of God, and I want to see you prosper and do well. But also in the material sense, that when there is more money flowing into my pocket instead of some New York hedge fund, I'm going to spend more money in my local community. And the local retailer, the local grocery store, the local restaurant is going to be able to prosper more. Then they're going to be able to pay their workers more. They're going to be able to expand. I mean, it's just, there are so many ways that workers winning is going to be able to help other workers win. And so I'm, that's something that we want to make sure that we hit home, and I'm so glad that you said that.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. As the greed and exploitation of the bosses flows freely across all state borders and international borders, so too must the solidarity of workers flow freely across all state borders and international borders.
That's right. And this being a heavily refugee workforce that you're discussing here, this makes it an immigrant justice issue and a racial justice issue, because we all know that bosses prey upon those sorts of divisions and vulnerabilities to exploit workers coming from those backgrounds. So we really, we hope to see some victory, some good news. Hopefully you can call us very soon with some great news coming out of South Dakota for these folks.
I look forward to it, brother.
All right, yeah. Cooper, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave us with?
All power to the working class.
That's a good way to wrap it up.
That's a good way to wrap it up. Yes, sir.
All right, folks, we have been talking to Cooper Karaway. He is the president of the South Dakota AFL-CIO about meat processing plant worker struggles in his state. They went through a pandemic. 1,200 of them contracted the coronavirus. 4 of them died, and the bosses are asking for concessions, and they aren't taking it. So we'll be coming back with more. Stay tuned.
Huntsville's #1 news, talk, and weather station. WVNN Athens. WVNN FM Trinity. A Cumulus station. It's 10 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. An urgent warning from the CDC that if we want to stop the pandemic, parents need to vaccinate their teens. Many unvaccinated teens now ending up in the hospital. Dr. John Brownstein with Children's Hospital in Boston says this is not like the flu.
These numbers are larger than what we've seen with influenza. More than 70% had underlying conditions, but that leaves about 30% that were otherwise healthy.
Meanwhile, overseas, growing calls to postpone the Olympic Games in Tokyo next month as Japan remains in a state of emergency due to the pandemic.
The Olympic Committee even telling athletes to sign a so-called death waiver, releasing Olympic organizers from liability over COVID-19 related issues. The waiver similar to those signed in previous Olympics, but with updated language to include serious bodily injury or even death raised by the transmission of COVID-19.
ABC's Julia McFarlane. Donald Trump returning to the political stage today, the keynote speaker at a gathering of North Carolina Republicans, this a day after Facebook extended his ban till at least 2023. And more troubles for 45. ABC News is learning that criminal investigations into the former president are revving up, We've learned that Trump Organization controller Jeff McConney recently testified behind closed doors to a special grand jury.
Sources tell ABC that McConney is the first employee of the former president's company to be called to testify, which could be a sign that prosecutors are burrowing deep within the company's finances.
ABC's Alex Perchet at the White House. Flight attendants and passengers aboard a Delta flight being held as heroes after tackling a man who reportedly tried to break into the cockpit. That passenger restrained by other passengers and crew. Wes Campbell was one of the folks on the plane.
Got my knee in his back, and I didn't want him. He tried to get up, so I was trying to hold him down because I just didn't know what he was going to do.
The plane was diverted to Albuquerque, the man taken into FBI custody. Essential Quality, the favorite for today's running of the Belmont Stakes. You're listening to ABC News.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the last 39 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how I've done it. Dial pound 250 from your cell phone and say the words real estate, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you it'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Dial pound 250 and say real estate. Let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's the pound sign 250. When they ask for the keyword, say real estate.
Stay informed and entertained all day long. Only on WVNN. Let's go!
Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, Adam Keller. We are joined on the show today by Queen of the Coal Miners' Wives, Hayden Wright. Hayden, thank you for calling in.
Hey, Jacob.
Good to talk to you. Good to talk to you. So, just to keep everybody on the same page, can you turn the music is still going? Yeah, yep. So to keep everybody on the same page, just a reminder that coal miners down in Brookwood are still on strike. There are 1,100 of them that are walking the picket lines. They are not going into work. They have walked off the job from Warrior Met. They are now into their 8th week. They're into their 8th week striking against Warrior Met, and the company isn't budging, so we can't budge in our support for the workers, for the union, and for the strike. So we're still covering it, and we're still doing everything that we can to support them. And this week has been a week filled with violence, but not from the union, like so many would have you believe. It has been violence perpetrated against striking coal miners by scabs and bosses. So Hayden, can you talk to us a little bit about what is going on at the picket lines down in Brookwood?
Yes, just yesterday we actually had 2 vehicles attack strikers on our picket lines at 2 separate locations. The first one happened at 99, which is also 216. We had a white dog pass by the picket line, turn around, and then come back and run through the side of the road. They ran a fire barrel, they ran their trailer.
Hayden, you're breaking up. Yes. You're breaking up just a little bit. I'm not sure if there's something that you can do with your phone or.
Is this better?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So,
yes,
so what was?
We actually had a truck turn around in order to get on the correct side of the road to run through a picket line. There was 2 men there. One of them was struck with the fire barrel. Actually, his wife is part of our auxiliary. that happened early in the morning. And then yesterday, a little bit later in the morning, we had a boss intentionally hit one of the union representatives that isn't even from our locations. He is actually down from West Virginia supporting the strike and has been here for a month.
That's just crazy. They're going out of their way to hit folks on the picket line, and this is something that Kim Kelly pointed out in her tweet. You can find Hayden Wright on Twitter at Hayden Wright. It's HAEDEN Wright. And she's got the videos on there. And something that Kim pointed out when she shared your video is that y'all oftentimes like being on the picket line is kind of a family affair down there. You know, you've got your family, you've got wives, you've got children, you've got grandparents on the picket line, and people, and they're trying to run people over.
That's correct. My own children have been there. And this is completely unacceptable. We're trying to demonstrate a right that we legally have to protest. And in Alabama, there's statutes that say we're not allowed to have anything to defend ourselves on the picket line, or we can be arrested.
That's why. And that is, I mean, that's insane, because Alabama, I mean, I think that kind of illustrates the degree to which the concern of our political class is not about workers, because Alabama is a stand your ground state. It's a state that has in our laws that if you're just a citizen and you feel threatened, if you feel that your life is in danger, you are legally authorized to use deadly force against a person. And we can talk about, you know, whether or not...
Exactly, unless you're actually using it as a peaceful assembly, and then you have no rights.
Exactly, right. I mean, that's exactly right. You know, I mean, we can talk about the benefits and the cons of having a stand your ground law, but where does it not apply? It doesn't apply when you're on the picket line, and when you have a real and legitimate, like, there's actual real threats on y'all's life, but y'all can't have weapons on the picket line because it's classified as a protest, and you're not allowed to have weapons at protests. I mean, you know, I mean, I wonder why that is, that you're not able to defend yourself when you're fighting peacefully for your rights, but you know.
Well, and you'll notice the guy that was directing traffic, which is, of course, you know, a paid person from Warrior Met. The reason the man was crossing the street is he called him over to him to ask him a question.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy directing traffic there called this man across the road and then let a truck hit him and did nothing. Stood there.
Right. Right. I mean, and I saw that. This is somebody that's ostensibly supposed to be, you know, a security person. They're not. Are they a sheriff, like a Tuscaloosa County sheriff or Jefferson County sheriff, or are they like paid or are they private security?
I believe that he is a private security. I do not believe that he's actually a police officer for the county. We're still trying to get clarification on that because you couldn't see his face or the front of his shirt.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, that's exactly right. You know, you can see it in the video where there's this person who's, you know, even if he's a private security guard, he's ostensibly supposed to be like enforcing laws and making sure that nobody gets hurt and things like that. And there was absolutely no, you know, there was no indication on his part that he wanted to do, you know, that he wanted to do anything to stop violence from happening to the picketing miners. Now, after that happened, he got in between the strikers and the cars so that they couldn't, you know, defend themselves. But he was but he was not at all interested in making sure that the strikers did not get hurt.
And I think that's a big misconception that I'm saying, too, about when we were talking about earlier about having our children on there. Personally, this morning on Facebook, which I tend to avoid because that's more drama than what I like to have to deal with, we have someone with a fake account that was like, well, you shouldn't have had your children on the picket line anyway.
Mm.
And I was like, well, obviously you don't know UMWA history or really the history of the labor movement as a whole.
Right.
Because historically, change happens when women, children, families take a stand on the picket line.
That's exactly right.
People need to know that when our husbands signed that contract at Warrior Met, that contract and the unfair labor practices didn't stop when they signed in and signed out at work.
Right.
That affected our entire family.
Right.
So we're all fighting this.
Y'all are all fighting this, and why shouldn't, picket lines should be safe for striking workers' families to be there. The only reason that it wouldn't be safe for them to be there is because of bosses and scabs attacking y'all. And so,
That's victim blaming.
Right.
To me, to even make those comments that, well, you shouldn't have brought your kids. That is blaming the victim.
Right. It's like, it's like telling, when you hear about somebody being sexually assaulted, it's like the first question you ask is, what was she wearing? We now accept, that's not okay. It doesn't matter what she was wearing. She, a woman deserves to be able to be in public without being accosted. And in the same way, workers and their families have a right to be able to protest and have a picket line without worrying about being attacked by scabs and bosses.
You're exactly right. And then his follow-up was, he tagged me and he was like, well, what does it have to do with you? So I informed him. I said, well, first of all, I head up the auxiliary for 2 of the locals. Second of all, I'm doing well past my 16 hours a week for our union.
Right.
So I will defend my union brothers and my union sisters, not just at Warrior Met, but at any union that's being attacked that way.
That's exactly right. And that goes to what does it have to do with you? I mean, that ties in exactly to where we ended with Cooper Karaway from South Dakota. All struggles of workers are really, I can't stress that enough, how interconnected we all are, and how, if y'all lose, knock on wood, God forbid, but if y'all lose this fight, then the next coal mines that negotiate a contract are going to be able to point to y'all and say, look what they accepted. What makes you think you're better than them? And then your communities are going to suffer because the local grocers, the local retailers, the local restaurants aren't going to have as much money coming in because this is a coal mining town. The people with the best income are going to lose a lot of it. And it's just so, across county lines, across state lines, across country lines, all of our struggles are connected. And you're more than even me or Adam or David or Cooper in South Dakota, but you especially. But we're all connected and we're all invested because we're all workers. And when workers win, then we all win.
And not even just mining, but if they see a company and a corporation with stockholders getting away with this and they're treating workers this way and there's no local media coverage, this is going to be for all unions across all labor organizations. That is giving people the grounds to say, hey, it's okay if we treat people like this. No one is going to stand up and stop it. No one's going to stand up to us.
Right.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's been this race to the bottom that we've seen across our economy is, companies competing on just how much they can get away with. And, this violence on the picket line is so unacceptable. And unfortunately, it's something we've seen more and more in recent years of people using their vehicles directed at protesters. We hope and pray everyone stays safe down there, and we appreciate you getting the word out and shedding light on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna bring you on.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. And we're going to bring you on. I've got just a couple more questions for you on the other side of this break. If you could stay on the line. Folks, you're listening to the Valley Labor Report. We are talking to Hayden Wright down in Brookwood, Alabama, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. If you're looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334. That's 256-383-3334, or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
Where Alabama talks, WVNN. Depend on it.
Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. We are on the line now with Hayden Wright. She is queen of the coal miners' wives down in Brookwood, Alabama, giving us a report from the picket line. So, one more thing on the on the violence that y'all have been seeing from the Scabs and the bosses. How has it, you mentioned that you knew the wife of one of the people that was hit, and of course, how has dealing with that affected y'all's families, like emotionally and psychologically and all of that?
Well, I would say one thing that the strike has done, it has brought a lot of the wives from where you're met together. Because, honestly, if you haven't had a spouse work there, if you're not familiar with what it's like to have a husband that works 12 hours, 6, 7 days a week, you really don't know the toll that takes.
Right.
It's hard to explain to people who haven't lived that. And I really think that we've come together as a group. Like, I love all the wives. Like, we're one group. I see them as being my family. Mm-hmm. We're all very supportive of each other. We all are putting in hours on the line. We have some ladies that are out there every time their husband's on the line, they're with them. We have ones every time we're doing pickups for the strike pantry. Every time we're unloading. Every time we're giving out bags. They're there willing to help out.
Mm-hmm.
And right. Even the ones who can't physically be there, because, some of these guys are driving 2 hours even to get to this job. They're still supporting each other on social media. They're reaching out. They're making sure everyone's okay. And that's what people need to understand. That's what a union gives you. A union gives you that support system. A union gives you that family, that we're going to take care of each other, that we respect each other, and that we're going to make sure that you're okay.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's such a, that's such a good example of what unions can be and what unions can do, I think. Can you talk to us about some of the ways that that the wives have been supporting their supporting the strike, and talk to us about your strike pantry that y'all have going on right now, and what that has been able to do for the strike, and what it's been like to be a part of that. Because I think that's so cool that y'all have been able to do that, and that's been like a bottom up kind of thing, is my understanding. Like you and some other wives just got together and we were like, hey, we want to support the strike, and we're going to do this, right? I mean, there wasn't like a directive from the International that came down and told y'all to do this, right?
That's correct. Actually, a few wives had started getting donations at number 4's local, and they realized quickly that, hey, we're going to need more help. We have too many people. We can't just do this with a few.
Right.
So then I reached out to Larry Spencer, and I was like, hey, we need to do something to support these guys. We need to get the Strike Pantry up and going to where we can supply it to everyone. So we set up the PayPal account. It was amazing, the support that we received from that. We've set up with Grace Klein, and they are doing donations for us every other week. So we have about 25, 30 between all the auxiliaries that are pretty much there every week, because we're making at least 200 bags a week. We give them out a lot of times at the rallies. We give them out at the hall.
Mm-hmm.
This last week, we made hot dogs and chips for everyone at the rally. So about 300 hot dogs and chips for the families to come, because our rallies are at 6 o'clock at Tenny Hill. So everyone's welcome to attend those. We're also working even on back to school. Because we don't want the children to suffer or not have what they need because of the strike either.
Right.
So it's really important, and it's really brought a lot of us closer together. And I don't think people realize local for 2397, which is number 7 mine, they've had an auxiliary for about 31 years. Their president, Miss Evelyn, she's amazing. But we just formed the auxiliary, which combined number 4 mine and number 5 mine. So we actually haven't been an auxiliary, an official UMWA auxiliary, but for a few weeks, because we had to elect officials and those type of things.
So
we've been working hard behind the scenes, yes.
Yeah.
Trial by fire on that to jump in right in the middle of this struggle. And something you said about growing closer together, I think that's something that's pretty universal in the labor movement, that the relationships you forge in struggle when you are, deep in a fight and you have each other's backs, those are relationships that sometimes are even deeper than family, because you've been there together and been through the good, the bad, and the ugly of a struggle.
Yes.
And that's something that, that is the best of the labor movement. And for those, I know there are a lot of listeners who maybe have never belonged to a union or, don't even know where to go to find a union. Mm-hmm. Maybe you work in non-union industries. That is one of the most important things about the labor movement. It's not just, that on average we have better wages, better benefits. It's the relationships that you are in a community. And when we say, sister and brother, that's not just, talk. That's real. We have each other's backs. And I think that's one of the things I've witnessed with y'all down at Brookwood, because you don't have a choice. You got to have each other's backs to go through this kind of struggle, because it is a pretty epic struggle. I mean, 8 weeks, and the greed that this company has demonstrated is remarkable, even by contemporary standards, because we got a hell of a lot of greedy corporations in this country, in this world right now. But Warrior Met just
exactly, and we're not even asking for more. We're just asking for some back of what we had that we gave up.
Y'all are just trying to catch up.
Save Warrior Met.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the things that I have the least patience for, is the narrative about the greedy worker, and especially the greedy union worker, because time after time after time, you see even union workers, you see workers all across the board sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice for their companies and for their countries and for their families, and then it's the companies that are never willing. It's the executives that are never willing to do the same. UAW is one of the prime examples of people saying that they have that the UAW bargained themselves out of a job or something, and it's their fault that jobs are going overseas. But if you actually look at what happened, you can look in 2008 when everything crashed. UAW, the workers, workers voted to accept collectively so much concessions. I mean, cuts to their wages, cuts to their benefits, cuts to their health care, everything across the board to save, along with tax breaks and subsidies from the taxpayer. But they took a lot of sacrifices as well to save the big three U.S. automakers. And what did the executives at the big three U.S. automakers do? What did they sacrifice? Nothing. They got stock buybacks after that. And then when they went on strike back in 2018 and I went and walked the picket lines, I had some people that had the nerve to tell me that they're going to strike themselves out of a job. And I hear the same thing about y'all down there when y'all sacrificed so much in 2015 and 2016 for this company. And the CEO, after they went bankrupt, the CEO, the board of directors say the same. They did not take a pay cut. They're making more than they ever have. And now they are refusing to give y'all back just what you had, much less to give you like some sort of bonus, some sort of payback for all the sacrifices that you made over the last half a decade. I mean, I have no patience for the greedy worker narrative. It's totally false. It has never happened. Workers have never asked for too much.
No, if anything, workers don't ask for enough.
That's exactly
right. Because we've been so taught not to value our own labor and what we're doing for these corporations.
Right.
Yeah.
Because where does it end? I mean, it's always more that they want to take. It's always less that they want to offer, and it seems to never end. And that's, I think that the struggle you guys are engaged in is a microcosm of our entire economy. There's really so much about the struggle in Brookwood represents so many other struggles across the country. And on a personal note, I want to shout out Hayden. I hope I don't put you on blast too much, but Hayden is also a full-time English teacher. So in addition to leading up these auxiliary efforts and busting her tail for, 10, 20 hours a week extra just to help feed her comrades down there, she's also a full-time teacher. And teachers, that's another good example of workers where, by and large, everyone's there for the right reasons and doing what they believe is best. And unfortunately, it's too often taken advantage of by those in power.
Yes.
Yeah. Hayden, we're coming up on the end of this segment. Where can people go to donate to the to your Strike Pantry Fund?
For the Strike Pantry, I have a PayPal. You can find the link on my Twitter. Kim has shared it as well. I know that you guys, I think, have shared it too. And then for international, for the Strike Aid Fund, they don't have an online donation platform, but I also have their address posted on my Twitter as well.
Okay. And what's your Twitter account?
Mine is just Hayden Wright.
Haeden.
D-E-N.
Yep.
W-R-I-G-H-T. Yes.
All right. Folks, go find Hayden Wright on Twitter. Make sure you donate to the Strike Pantry Fund. Is there anything else that you want to leave us off with before you head out?
No, I just want to thank you so much for your continued support and solidarity that everyone has shown to us. We wouldn't be able to keep holding on one day longer if it wasn't for everyone joining together with us.
That's exactly right. So, folks, make sure that you go and... It's absolutely our pleasure. We are so happy to be able to do it. And so, folks, make sure that you go donate to their Strike Pantry Fund. Make sure that you follow her for updates from the picket line on Twitter. She has a fantastic account, always sharing good information from down in Brookwood. And we're going to be right back with a story about some other meat workers from a immigration lawyer out in California. Has called in. Going to be talking to Ken Martinez Gomez. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison. This is News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. News starts now.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen meeting with other finance ministers from G7 nations in London. The group agreed to support a global minimum corporate tax rate of 15%.
That's an historic achievement. I think we will end up with a tax system that will be much fairer.
The intention is to prevent companies from avoiding paying taxes by keeping their profits in countries with lower tax rates. The Justice Department says it will no longer secretly seize communications records of reporters when it investigates leaks. It's a reversal from prior policy. President Biden called the practice simply wrong. White House says the latest Republican proposal on infrastructure fell short of the president's goals. A spokesperson for key Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito says she will speak again with the president Monday. Federal judge in California overturned the state's ban on assault weapons, saying it violates the Second Amendment. Governor Gavin Newsom said the decision is a direct threat to public safety. Brian Clark, ABC News.
The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air.
The Dale Jackson Show, a safe space for terrible people. Weekdays, 7 to 11 a.m., only on WVNN. WVNN. Depend on it.
Lonely dead, stuck, bleeding pig. Lonely dead, shot, choose today.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. We've had a great show today. I think we talked to Cooper Karaway about some meat processing plant workers in South Dakota. Got a picket line update from Hayden Wright down in Brookwood, Alabama, and we've got a caller on the line, Ken from California. He's an immigration lawyer, isn't that right, Ken?
And that's part of what enters into what I do, but I'm actually a workers' comp lawyer.
Okay, gotcha. Workers' comp lawyer. I appreciate you calling in. Ken has been a listener of the show for quite a while. He knows, you know David, right? That's how you found out about the show?
Yes, David was really approachable. And the valley is such a common term, so I thought you were talking about the valley in California. He told me the valley out there, so that's how, roundabout way, we got to know each other.
That's funny.
Well, as we've said, our worker issues are all related. So whatever's going on out in California definitely resonates here in the Tennessee Valley. And Ken, also just want to thank you for your patience. This is the first show with me running the boards without David here to keep me straight, tell me what to do when I screw up. So, Ken, thank you. I'm so glad I actually have you on the phone line, and we can hear you and you can hear us. That is a miracle.
Well, it all takes a team effort, right?
That's right. There you go. Yeah, so Ken, speaking of the Valley, California worker struggles being connected, you said that you had a story about some poultry plant workers in your state, right?
That's correct. Out at Foster Farms in Fresno, anybody can look this story up, but there was a cover-up of a COVID outbreak among Latino poultry workers. And what happened is the following. OSHA was in charge last year to, do surprise inspections as to OSHA COVID protocol. And what happened is a local county executive, government representative, found out that OSHA was going to come out and tipped off Foster Farms. So they didn't want OSHA to know what was going on with the COVID outbreak among Latino workers. And this is crazy. And the California Latino Legislative Caucus put out a press conference about 2 months ago. And it could be found at either California Assembly Democrats or California Senate Democrats YouTube page. And it gives a full press conference and relief on this tragic cover-up.
Well, Ken, hell, it's hard enough to get OSHA to come out to begin with, but then to tip off the workplace that they're coming, I mean, that's egregious.
Yeah, Fresno, trying not to be offensive, but Fresno is very much like a red state, even though it's within California. Might as well call Fresno a red state.
So, and you said it was the local government there that caught wind of OSHA's planned inspection, and they tipped off the factory?
That is correct. That's the issue of the bad collaboration. And like I say, it's kind of like a red state where government is often a part of the corporate machine.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, especially at the local level, so many of these local politicians, and let's face it, most folks don't know who some of their local, county commissioners or city council members are. But I can guarantee you the big industrialists in town know who they are because, they take them out for drinks and coffee all the time and collaborate on what gets brought up twice a month on the agenda.
That is correct.
Yeah. So what's it looking like at this point? I mean, how are the workers there? Are they unionized? Like, what is their plan moving forward?
Well, there's a lot of intimidation, and there needs to be follow-up. But for the fact that the Fresno Bee, at the time of the issue, brought the story to light, and then later, probably like 5 months later, the Latino Legislative Caucus made a press conference on this very issue and that it should be investigated, it would have stayed unknown. So it's still ongoing, active investigation, and we will see if there's any legislation or more direct intervention from Sacramento, the state capital. So it's one of those stories that hits the media, sounds sexy for a few days, and can stay out of everybody's mind unless people say, hey, that's wrong. We got to do more.
Right. And that, I mean, the theme of this show, I think, today has been how connected our worker struggles is. And you mentioned the Fresno Bee, which I'm assuming is a local newspaper. And that the ability for people locally to embed themselves in the community and to have an understanding of what is going on in the community and be able to do this real investigative work is so important. And that's one of the great catastrophes of the 21st century is the destruction of local journalism and the absolute destitution of these institutions, and why what unions like the News Guild are doing is so good and so important, because we need to be able to preserve these institutions like the Fresno Bee, like the Huntsville Times, and places like this, so that we have somebody that we're paying that gets a living wage, that is able to live comfortably, so that they can do this, like you said, this work that may be sexy for a day. But how long did that work that was sexy for a day take? That almost certainly took months of tracking and investigating and following up with people, and that's something that's just simply not going to be profitable if you come at it like a capitalist would, like an asset management firm, and so we need to have more worker control over these organizations, over these institutions, and the ability for journalists to live and to live comfortably is so intertwined with the ability for poultry plant workers to be able to live and live comfortably. Because if these poultry plant workers don't have the people at the Fresno Bee to do these investigations, then that's one more way that the boss is going to be able to pull one over on them without anybody knowing or without anybody coming to their aid.
I agree, and I really appreciate the efforts of Hayden, your previous interviewee, because it's a lot about what the community does, because the workplace is part of the community, and sometimes getting these stories out is showing the relationship or the intersectionality, as young people say, between COVID and other dangerous exposures to workers that they in turn bring home to their families and affect the community. So I think an effective strategy is for people like Hayden and other good community people that may not even work there can raise to their representatives that their community is getting sick because of some nonsense and unsafe behaviors at a local plant.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Ken. And what you said, it's also, in this story in particular, it's an intersection of weak regulation of our industries and local government collusion with local industry to keep that regulation weak. And so, yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and I think it is, that's something we're trying to do with this show to elevate worker struggles and highlight those. We're just a couple guys doing a radio show. In the grand scheme of things, we do have such a deficit in terms of media, especially media that will cover labor issues, workplace issues with real integrity and actually, follow stories, investigate stories. It's a lot easier to crank out an article that's like, 13 quotes from a press conference.
Right.
Or, these listicle type articles that are clickbait, but, are short on substance, long on links and advertisements. And I think it takes people like you, Ken, who are actually paying attention and are willing to, step outside their comfort zone or take time out of their day to spread the word about these kind of issues. Like you said, I mean, it is all a team effort, and that's not just putting on this radio show. It's actually making a difference in the lives of working people. It is a team effort.
Right. And that's why, and that's, I just want to emphasize how important the action, like real, real journalists and reporters are, because like what we do is almost sort of news aggregation. We don't have, but we've got like jobs, we don't have time to go, like we have other jobs. We don't have time to go and really hunt down a lead. All that we can do with this show and throughout the week is lift up work that other people are doing. We don't have time to actually go into communities outside of our own. We're in our own community and we have some, we have some amount of inside knowledge there, but outside of that, all that we can do is lift up the work that other people are doing. And that's why, having institutions like local newspapers or like freelance journalists like Kim Kelly who are able to to scrape together a living doing what she does is just, I can't say enough how much I value the work of Kim Kelly and folks like her that are actually going out there and doing this work as their job. Like that's so, it unfortunately takes so much bravery because it's such a precarious industry. And I just have so much respect for folks like that. And there's so much value in it. So much value there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I just want to remind folks, since you talked about your relationship with AFL-CIO, that they have something I discovered recently, which is called the Union Lawyers Association. And they're trying to encourage people breaking into the employee side of labor relations. And AFL-CIO is obviously very good to follow. So if people want to follow up, or they're young law students or new lawyers or think about law school, unions have good opportunities to help people, but also take it to court and make the laws work.
Right.
Absolutely. I appreciate you saying that. You're kind of reading my mind, because I was going to thank you for what you do. I know attorneys get a bad reputation sometimes, but we need good attorneys on our side, because we can't win our struggles in just one arena. We of course organize in the workplace. We engage in, at the ballot box, in the streets, but in the courtrooms as well. And as someone who has worked closely with attorneys over the years, someone who actually has a heart for their clients, and that consider their clients to be strictly working people, it's huge. And I know, you mentioned workers' comp. That is an uphill battle for so many working people who get hurt on the job. It can be a nightmare logistically and just bureaucratic loopholes to jump through. So shout out to what you do. And also if Mr. Sweat, who called in last week, young up-and-coming legal student helping out with the labor movement down there in Brookwood. We need young, smart folks who want to enter the law profession to join our side.
Yeah.
Don't go to the dark side. I know you're going to have a lot of loans, and it's very, very tempting to want to go to the dark side and work for management, work for these evil, polluting, greedy corporations. But regular people need attorneys too, because we get hurt on the job, we get discriminated against on the job, we get cheated out of pay, and we need help. And so what folks like you do, and by encouraging others to join that, it really means a lot, and I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And just to inform the community, you guys already have good relationships with local workers' comp attorneys, and most places you don't pay out of pocket to hire a workers' comp attorney. It's a percentage of the ultimate settlement, like you hear about in personal injury cases. And it's limited and regulated to what the attorney can finally get. So it don't cost anything to check it out. So many people think, man, I don't have $300 for a consultation. It's supposed to be for free, at least in California and many other areas.
Right. Yep. That's a great note to wrap that up on. Thanks so much for calling in, Ken. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, so folks, that was Ken. He's from California. He is a workers' comp attorney, and that's the work that he does, the work that Daniel does is, that it's just so important for folks to be able to, such as it is, there is a law, and we've got to have people. We've got to have people on our cases, and so, so if you're wanting to be a lawyer, you should be a lawyer for workers, not for the boss. So, folks, we've got one more segment. If you want to give us a call, the phone number is 1-866-494-9866. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, believes all workers are entitled to fairness, dignity, and respect. AFGE also knows that the best way to guarantee proper treatment is for workers to stand together, united, looking out for each other. In AFGE, we fight for workers every day to ensure a workplace that is safe and free from harassment. If you're a federal employee and want to be a part of this union to protect yourself and your fellow workers, call 256-876-4880.
WVNN.
Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, Adam Keller. We are coming to you live online and on the radio on WVNN in the Huntsville, Decatur, Athens listening area from Athens, Alabama. I have really enjoyed the show today. We've had a lot of, worker, and the theme across everything has been, and it wasn't like we planned this. Actually, I realized, we were putting together the show yesterday because we've been so busy this week, and we were like, oh no, we haven't put together the show. And so it was totally, it's just, I saw things that I wanted to talk about, and so I asked people to call in, and it's amazing how, like, a really clear theme has risen out of these kind of impromptu interviews that we've done today, and the guests that we've had call in, which is that workers' struggles are connected, like in a real material and intimate way. When workers win, it's good for everybody, and when workers lose, it's bad for everybody. And I mean, that's just, it's so I don't know, if I could think of one theme for the entire show, almost I would probably want that to be one of them, and to hit home, because people, the boss and our political class, want to do everything that they can to make us think that we aren't all in this together, that a win for a fry cook at McDonald's is going to be bad for you instead of being good for you. I saw a tweet the other day that said, I'm a union worker, I'm a journeyman, and I'm making, $20-something an hour or something like that. And if a fry cook at McDonald's made $15 an hour, ... that would be great. And I would be really happy, because we're all workers and we're all in this together. And that's the attitude that we all need to have, because it doesn't help anybody except the boss, except these, New York hedge fund types, to have workers living in poverty and destitution. It just doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help our community. It doesn't help their families, and it doesn't help us. And so we need to, and that's why I've been so happy with the way that today's show has worked out, because I think that we've really been able, and the guests have really been able to pull together these threads from across the country, from Brookwood, Alabama, to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to Fresno, California. I mean, all of us are connected, I'm almost getting a little bit emotional, but it's true. It's so important that people understand that, and that we forge a movement and a politics that understands that and that recognizes that, whether that be inside or outside of any one party or the electoral system or not. I'm much more interested in fostering that kind of movement in our workplaces, and because that's where we have the most power, is at our workplaces. You can go vote, you can go vote, and a lot of times all that's going to do is change the flag that's plastered on the bombs, right, that kill innocent children overseas. But but in your workplace, your vote for a union or not for a union actually has a real material impact on yourself, your life, your family, and your community in a way that oftentimes it doesn't have at the ballot box, which is not to undermine the importance of voting in elections, and that we should vote in elections, and we should understand who we're voting for and what they're going to do, and we should hold them accountable after elections. But unions and working class organization is a much faster and more efficient and a better place to spend your time, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jacob. I think you're hitting on something that I've really been thinking about a lot, especially this past year or so. And, not to get too philosophical with it, but it is about building a movement that is centered around humanity and our shared humanity. And I mean love and empathy, which, I've said it before, that solidarity is basically the social expression of love. That's the sort of movement that we're trying to contribute to, and it's the sort of movement that I think we need to address the many, many crises we face in this country, in this state, in this local community, and really around the world. So much, particularly in these last few decades in the United States, so much is centered around the individual. And we have a hyper-individualistic society. I think we're all trained to see ourselves as just atomized individual consumers. But we're much more than that. We are brothers and sisters. I think starting at the workplace where wealth is created, we don't have a life without an economy, and we don't have an economy without workers creating wealth.
Right.
Whether it's services, whether it's goods, whatever it is that you may do. And it starts with building relationships. You may not have a union yet. A union may be a pretty far-fetched goal for you in your workplace as of today.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do is strengthen relationships. And you can have conversations one-on-one with your coworkers and build bridges on your shared interest. And that is the power of labor, is to transcend some of the divisions, some of which are real, some of which are artificial and stoked by media and politics. But all of us who have to sell our labor for a living, which is the vast majority of human beings here in Alabama, here in the United States, and here on planet Earth, we have nothing to sell but our labor.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have money that makes its own money. Most of us don't have that. Most of us don't have businesses that we can profit off other people's work. We just have ourselves. And that's why it is so important that we look out for one another, that we have each other's back. When one of us is in struggle, we show up to support that struggle, because tomorrow it may be us that needs backup.
Right. Yeah, that's, and that's, and I'm so, and I hope that every time there's a picket line, absolutely, like if you're a union member, within even a few hours, you should be on there at least once. If you're a union member in Alabama and you haven't been on the miners' picket line yet, you need to get on that, right? Because these are the people at the front lines of the class war right now. They're
And it is a war.
Yeah.
And it has been a war. And I know that's been inconvenient to talk about for a long time. People don't want to acknowledge that there is such a thing as class struggle, that there is such a thing as class.
Right.
There's a difference between those who own and those who work.
Right. Yeah, and it's just, it's not like a super ideological, some people that want to divide us want to make it into some sort of super ideological position to say that there's a class war, but it's true. There's a class war, and the people that own, the people that hire others to do things from the wealth that they have hoarded, have different interests, like just fundamentally, than workers, than people who have to sell their labor, who have to sell their bodies to be able to survive. We have different interests than the bosses, and we need to understand that, and we need to be able to come together as a class, to come together as workers to fight the bosses, because they're like, when there are fundamentally different interests, there's going to be a struggle there. And the bosses understand that, and that's why the bosses are trying so hard every time there's a fight. Like today's show has shown, from Brookwood, Alabama to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to Fresno, California. Every time there's a fight, the bosses bring their A game. They bring everything they can, and the only way that we can bring everything we can is if we bring all of us together to fight together, because that's all that we've got. We don't have armies of money, hordes of cash, armies of lawyers to fight on our side. We don't have politicians that we've bought. We have ourselves and our labor, and that is what we have to use to fight in the class war. And so, kudos to those miners down in Brookwood, to the poultry plant workers in Fresno, and to the meat processing workers in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. All power to the workers. Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor, and we'll see you next week.
WVNN Athens, WVNN FM Trinity, a Cumulus station. It's 11 o'clock. News starts now.
From ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. Finance ministers from the group of 7 countries meeting in London have agreed to support a global minimum corporate tax of 15%. It was hailed by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen.
That global minimum tax would end the race to